Hi folks, and welcome to the next We Paint Minis painting tutorial. This time round it's the guys in yellow, Dorn's very own Imperial Fist Space Marines. As mentioned in the previous video, I am going through some changes on the channel, trying out different techniques, filming styles and stuff like that, so you might see a slight difference in this one as you do to the other ones. Don't worry, I'm just messing around with stuff. Hopefully I will have it nailed soon, but for this moment, bear with me. Anyway, let's get to the painting. Getting straight in there, we're going to crack open the pot of AVERLAND Sunset. Using a large base brush, which I acquired from the Mortal Realms magazine, very handy, I literally slathered this all over very, very thinly. Don't worry about being neat at this stage, we're just going to get it all on the model. Fair few times, literally probably about 4 or 5 times, so quite a few coats, but it's worth it in the end. You get a really nice crisp bright covering. After those coats of AVERLAND Sunset have dried, then we're going to mix together 2 strange paints. We're going to go for Mournfang Brown and Screamer Pink, and we're going to go about 50-50 here, so you get almost like a burgundy brown red colour. Now there are probably some paints that do the job for you, but I quite like this colour. Then what we do is paint in all the recesses. Try to be as neat as you can. As you can see, other than the poor camera work, you can see that I'm not very neat, and it does make it difficult to tidy up later on. So if you can be as neat as you can, it would help you in the long run. Just fill in all the recesses with this colour and it will give you a nice shade to start with. Once we finish panel lining all the armour, grab your Nuln Oil and start to fill in all of the areas that are the under armour. I think they're under armour. I think I've said this a few times before. I'm still not too sure what they actually are. So anyway, use Nuln Oil, fill all this in, and anywhere else that you want black, it will set a good base for when you use ABADDON black. Plus some of the areas are quite hard to reach. So if you can get the Nuln Oil to settle into some of the recesses sooner, it'll be easier to apply the ABADDON black later without getting it all over the model. You still will, but it makes it easier. Now get that ABADDON black out and slap it over all the areas you've just painted with Nuln Oil. Be very careful with the yellow. You'll get it on yellow, as I said, but be very careful.
Mine's gonna ricochet.
Going for first company Imperial Fists here, so red trim and red Aquila. Now the Aquila on the chest is slightly darker and different colour than the ones on the trim of the shoulder pads. However, I do use the same paint. I use Doomball Brown as I did in the White Scar video. I'll put a link to the video up there. It's a great base colour to start creating a gradient up to MEPHISTON Red, Evil Sunz Scarlet, things like that. Using MEPHISTON Red, I do a series of watered down glazes of a milk consistency along the trim of the shoulder pads, gradually building up into brighter and brighter layers the closer it is to the light source. Being very careful with the yellow, wash the Aquila with Nuln Oil. Once the Nuln Oil's dry, grab some KHORNE Red and bring back the brightness of that Aquila, paying particular attention to the raised areas more than anything. Switching to some Evil Sunz Scarlet, just do a fine edge highlight along the pauldron trims. If you can get it on the inside of the trim, that's great, but don't worry too much if you can't. Just focus on the outside and focus on the areas where you created that gradient from the Doomball Brown to the MEPHISTON Red. Switching back over to the Aquila, we're going to use some MEPHISTON Red just to accentuate those highlights even further. So we're going to go from Doomball to KHORNE Red to MEPHISTON Red at this stage. Try to focus it on the things like the feathers and on the skull in particular, like the brow, the nose and the cheekbones. And then to finish it off, I just do some small little dots of Evil Sunz Scarlet right on the edges or the tips of the feathers. Using some YRIEL yellow, I'm going to start to do some glazes on all the panels. At this point it's a good idea to choose where your light source is coming from. That way when you start to create these glazes, you have a basic idea as to what parts of the armour are specifically highlighted with the glaze. Now I'm no expert at glazing, I gave it a ruddy good go. Quite pleased with how it turned out, but it's not the best. So you can skip this section if you want to and go straight to the edge highlighting, or give it a go. I always recommend giving it a go because you never know. That was a really bad rhyme and not some sort of wise proverb or anything like that.
I am strong and wise.
So just give it a go, see how you go. Sticking with the YRIEL yellow, we're going to do some edge highlighting on all of the armour panels. As always, take your time with this step. It can be quite time consuming, but as I've said before, it is totally worth it on Space Marines, I feel anyway. So see how you go. If you're not an edge highlighting person, that's fine, but at least give it a shot.
2,000 years later.
Using that same 50-50 mix of Mournfang Brown and Screamer Pink, I water it down quite heavily into a glazed consistency, so the milky consistency that everyone talks about, and I glaze this into the shadowed areas of the armour panel. So where we use the YRIEL yellow for the highlights, we use this at the lowlights. Focus it in the areas where the light is not hitting the most, and what it will do is it will create a nice gradient between the dark recesses up into the mid-tone of the AVERLAND sunset. And to finish off the yellow armour, we grab some Screaming Skull and just do some small little dots on all the corners of the panels, particularly where they meet at like right angles and things like that. Now the tried old tested leather technique of RHINOX hide base, a rough stippled edge highlight of Gorthor brown, an even finer rough stippled edge highlight of Baneblade brown, and finally a liberal wash all over of Agrax Earthshade. As I said before, I'm trying some new techniques and different ways to approach these videos, so I apologise if the sections before were quite quick. I would love to hear your thoughts and feelings and feedback about this new direction. It's not here to stay, I'm just testing the water, but I'd really love to know what you think. Let me know in the comments down below and I will take that on board for the next tutorials. Now we're going to highlight all the black areas, starting off with some ESHIN grey. We're going to do this on all the under armour bits, the belt and the bolt rifle. Followed by a further edge highlight of DAWNSTONE. Once the black's been highlighted, we're going to grab some KANTOR blue and start to fill in the eye lenses on the helmet. Again, be very careful. I think I only show one eye being painted on this bit because I just get so nervous. Follow that up with some Nuln oil. Then starting from the innermost part of the lens, paint 2/3 of it with Lothern blue. To finish off, highlight the innermost third with CALGAR blue. If you're feeling confident at this point, you could use some white scar to do a small dot on the innermost third and the outermost third of the lens. This will simulate a reflection of light, but only if you are brave enough to do it. Switching over to the purity seal, grab some Screamer Pink and paint in that wax. People usually wash a pink purity seal with Carabao Crimson, but in this case I used Nuln oil. I wanted to get a dirty, grimy look. Come back in with that Screamer Pink just to re-establish the highlights. Grab some ZANDRI dust and paint all the parchment paper on the seal. Once dry, slap on a liberal wash of Agrax Earthshade. Coming back in with ZANDRI dust, highlight the uppermost areas of the parchment, leaving the Agrax Earthshade in the recesses. This will give the illusion of depth whilst maintaining that same colour scheme you've got going on. And then a final edge highlight of Screaming Skull. Pick up the edges of the parchment and the most prominent raised areas. Turning our attention onto the bolt rifle, paint all the areas you want metal with Leadbelcher. Once you've painted all the bits that you wanted metal with Leadbelcher, give it a nice all over wash of Nuln Oil. And then finally re-establish those highlights with some more Leadbelcher. Focus it on the areas where there's more wear and tear than you'd expect. To make the gun look a bit more war-torn, stipple on some Leadbelcher all over the casing itself and also some of the flatter metallic areas. Once this final step is finished, the model is complete. All that is left to do is base it the same as the rest of your army. As always, a massive thank you to everybody who watched this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. This particular tutorial is slightly different this time round as I wanted to try something new. However, I am open for constructive criticism and feedback and all things like that. So if you wish to leave any comments or any suggestions, then let me know in the comments below. I'd really appreciate it. All that's left for me to say is thank you ever so much once again. Keep the hobby alive.